Hello viewers, welcome to Eclectic Movie Reviews and Updates. Just so you know, if you hear like a buzzing sound, it's because I have the fan on because it's, summertime and really hot. But, okay, most of you are probably sick of hearing the phrase, "It's been a hard year." Because it has. But in this video, I will be discussing some comedies, action-adventures, and spectacle movies that could potentially lift your spirits. And down the line, I see these films as ones that I can return back to often, and perhaps you guys could too. Check them out yourself. A lot of YouTubers and podcasters call those comfort food movies. I'm gonna be real. I hate the term comfort food movie. I hate it. I find it so degrading. There's a reason why we go back to certain movies. Not just because they're comfort food, but rather it's a testament to their qualities. Alternative way of looking at it, I like to look at some movies as roller coaster rides or rides. Like, think about it as the rides you like to go on at your favorite amusement park, Disney World or Universal, if you will. Yeah, I have my familiar favorites that I like to watch frequently, but over the past year and a half, I wanted to branch out and check out new things, and the journey has been extremely rewarding. That being said, to reiterate, these are films that I think could be additions to your list of familiar favorites when you see them. The first film I'm going to talk about, 10, and if I struggle a bit halfway, then I'll divide these into 2 videos, but I'll see where I am. First film on this list, The Abyss from 1989. This is James Cameron's most underrated movie. I feel like it's not talked about as much as Titanic, Terminators, or Avatar. Those who are deep into film most likely know of this, I imagine. But for those of a younger generation watching this video, I will explain what it's about. So a diving team searches for a sunken nuclear submarine with the intentions of recovering it. While doing so, they come in contact with underwater aliens. It stars Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, perhaps one of the longest and most difficult to pronounce actor names ever, and Michael Biehn. It's entertainingly thrilling and also quite funny. I like to think of it as like a spectacle romantic comedy. Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, nailed it, play a divorced couple who reconnect on their mission, and their interactions are pretty amusing in some scenes. The most hilarious character, I forget his name, but he's this guy with a pet rat. He's so protective over it, and he's the true comic relief of the movie. Plus the rat. The movie also has a beautiful score by Alan Silvestri. He's most known for composing Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, and some of the Marvel movies. But I think The Abyss is my favorite score of his. It's definitely the most unique of his compositions. Next up is The Enchanted Cottage from 1945, directed by John Cromwell and written by Herman J. Mankiewicz, who wrote Citizen Kane. In this fantasy romance, a GI pilot named Oliver, played by Robert Young, gets his face injured in war. He runs away from his mother and fiancé and rents out a cottage where he meets a girl named Laura, played by Dorothy McGuire. She's kind of a misfit. While I think she's beautiful, by Hollywood standards of that time period, she's not considered the most attractive. Like, she's not a Marilyn or a Grace Kelly. The two of them form a bond over their disfigurement, which, quite frankly, if you watch the movie, is not that bad. With the magic powers of the cottage, they start seeing each other as beautiful. However, to others they look exactly the same. This is similar to Shallow Hal in a way. Similar to how Jack Black's character sees Gwyneth Paltrow's character for the beautiful person she really is. The same happens for Robert Young and Dorothy McGuire when they fall in love with the cottage. The two would make a great double feature. The Enchanted Cottage would also play well in a double bill with Le Bête. It's a really sweet hidden gem of a classic. They actually talk about it here in the RKO book. I've showed this book a few times, the RKO story. Read the segment on the Enchanted Cottage. Here. The Enchanted Cottage was a beautiful film about ugliness, acting out its age-old theme that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Dorothy McGuire and Robert Young portrayed two of society's outcasts whose drabness and disfigurement vanish after they marry and begin to inhabit the magical cottage of the title. Only for a moment, when the unthinking cruelty of Young's mother, Spring Byington, drags them back to reality, do they again see one another as the rest of the world sees them. But even this is not enough to destroy their illusions, to ruin their new life. John Cromwell directed the tone poem, as narrator Herbert Marshall calls it, the mellow touch that made the film shimmer and glow and caused audiences to embrace its unadulterated sentimentality with open arms. Jack J. Gross was executive producer, Harriet Parsons produced, and DeWitt Bodden and Herman J. Mankiewicz wrote the script from Sir Arthur Wing's Pinero stage play. First National released a 1924 version of the Pinero play starring Richard Barthelmess and May McAvoy, which I believe was a silent film. If I'm correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was a silent adaptation. And the Enchanted Cottage is available on DVD. No Blu-ray yet, that I know of. Perhaps you can rent it at your library or through an interloan. It's played on TCM a couple times. I would love to see Kino Lorber put it out on Blu-ray. They could even put it on Paramount Plus, because RKO was a studio that became Paramount, unless there's some legal rights issue, because that stuff can be such a pain. Anyway, next up is The Frighteners from 1996, directed by Peter Jackson. This is a horror comedy about a psychic paranormal investigator named Frank Bannister, played by Michael J. Fox, who is called to mission when people start mysteriously dying in his neighborhood. Basically, a Grim Reaper-like character is pretty much stealing souls and making it look like the victims had heart attacks. Michael J. Fox's character used to be an architect. However, after he got into a car accident, his perception, as he says, was altered. Since then, he's been friends with 3 ghosts, a 70s gangster named Cyrus, a nerd named Stuart, and an Old West gunslinger named The Judge. 3 of them are hysterical. While solving the mystery, he befriends a recently widowed woman played by Trini Alvarado, who played Meg in the 1994 version of Little Women. They start to like each other. I'm really glad to have come across this. Come Halloween time, if you want to watch a movie that fits the theme, I would prefer to laugh rather than be frightened. Yes, that pun was intended. If it wasn't, if I said no pun intended, I would be lying. Then I would recommend this. Truthfully, it's a movie you watch any time of the year except maybe Christmas, because it's just so funny. It's available on Blu-ray, and you can watch it on Hulu if you have Stars. And then next up is History of the World Part 1, 1981, directed by Mel Brooks. This is an anthology parody of historical epics in the vein of films such as Ten Commandments, The Greatest Story Ever Told, but it manages to be its own comedic thing. In some ways, it's also sort of a satire in the arts and entertainment industry, with period epics as the backdrop. From the beginning, there's a joke pointing fun at art criticism, with the caveman critic peeing on the cave art piece. In the ancient Rome vignette, Mel Brooks plays a stand-up philosopher named Comicus. Mel Brooks is just so clever. He's the master of puns. Let me tell you, he's the master of puns. It's got a great ensemble cast, including Mel Brooks himself, Gregory Hines, the Miss Florida pageant winner, Margaret Humes, Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, Sid Caesar, Harvey Korman, and Orson Welles is the narrator! Another Citizen Kane connection! It's available on DVD and Blu-ray. You can see if your local library has it, or you can get an interloan. I don't think it's available to rent on Amazon Prime, but you can rent it on YouTube and Google Play. However, it's a bit expensive for this movie at $14.99, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially for like a comedy like this. You know, given that it's a Fox title, they should put it on Hulu since Disney owns both, but you know, like I said, there's stupid rights issues. I actually have the Blu-ray, but not with me in this room, but I don't want to get up and interrupt the video for that. Next up is Honeymoon in Vegas from 1992, directed by Andrew Bergman, who directed another Nick Cage romantic comedy, It Could Happen to You, which is great. Okay, so in Honeymoon in Vegas, Nicolas Cage plays a private investigator named Jack Singer, engaged to Betsy, played by Sarah Jessica Parker. They plan on getting married in Vegas, and in the beginning there's a flashback to when his mother died. He made a promise to his mother that he was never going to get married, so he's been weary of marriage ever since. When they go to Vegas, Jack, Nick Cage, loses a game with a con artist gambler named Tommy Gorman, played by James Caan. And James Caan's character becomes infatuated with Sarah Jessica Parker because she reminds him of his wife who passed away. In order to pay his debts, Nick Cage makes an agreement with James Caan for Sarah Jessica Parker to spend the weekend with him in Hawaii. Once Nick Cage suspects that they're having a fling, he plots a scheme to win Sarah Jessica Parker back. So it's a little bit like Indecent Proposal, in a way. But a little different, of course. It doesn't raise as much morality issues. First things first, Nick Cage's outbursts in this movie are absolutely hilarious. The energy between these three actors in this love triangle together is the perfect balance of snappy and cute. I don't want to give anything away, but of course Nick Cage brings in his love for Elvis. Honeymoon in Vegas is available on DVD and Blu-ray, HBO Max, and Tubi. And I just love like some of the romantic comedies with Nick Cage from the 80s and 90s, like Moonstruck, Valley Girl, It Could Happen to You, this. And you could even consider The Rock a romantic comedy if you want. Next up is The Jerk from 1979, directed by Carl Reiner. Steve Martin plays a simple-minded, childlike character raised by a rural southern family. He finally moves out and then has a series of odd jobs resulting in hilarity. The misadventurous situations Steve Martin's character gets into are just unbearable. They're unbearably funny. Bernadette Peters plays the love interest, and she's absolutely adorable. Jackie Mason plays a gas station manager. Emmett Walsh has a short bit. And the director himself, Carl Reiner, has a cameo. I don't think it would play well by today's PC standards, but who cares? I love it. If you want an uplifting comedy to put a smile on your face, definitely watch it. This would actually make a good pairing with the movie Being There because they both involve simple-minded men who sort of rise up in society. Nevertheless, as explained on the cover of the case, it's a rags to riches to rags again story. It's available on Blu-ray and it's available to rent for a couple dollars on YouTube, Apple TV, and Google Play. Next up is Lady Hawk from 1985, directed by Richard Donner. This is an action fantasy romance about a young thief named Philippe, Phillippe, Gaston, played by Matthew Broderick, who becomes friends with a mysterious man named Captain Navarre, played by Rutger Hauer, R.I.P. Navarre and the love of his life, Lady Isabel, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, are under a spell which they are separated by night and day. Rutger Hauer's character is a human by day and a wolf by night. On the other hand, Michelle Pfeiffer's character is a hawk by day and human by night. The only time they can see each other both in human form is during twilight. Under the mentorship from Navarre and Isabel, Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer's characters, Philippe, again, Matthew Broderick's character, must defeat the evil Bishop of Aquila, played by John Wood. He's the one who casted the curse. It's a lot of fun. Similar to Willow, it's a double hero's journey fantasy. You can rent it for a couple dollars on YouTube, and it's also available on Blu-ray through Warner Archive. Great if they put it on HBO Max. And then next up is The Last Starfighter from 1984, directed by Nick Castle, who played the shape Michael Myers in Halloween. Yes, he directed movies. Okay, so in The Last Starfighter, Alex is a video game expert in a trailer park. One day at the arcade, he breaks the record for a stand-up game called Starfighter. After winning, he's essentially teleported into outer space where he meets Centauri, the designer of Starfighter. Alex discovers that the Starfighter game on Earth was only a test to determine his ability for fighting in an intergalactic war. As Alex is recruited among the other starfighters, he learns to become a top-notch starfighter pilot and help his team defeat the enemy in war. If you're a fan of Star Wars and other sci-fi action movies, I highly recommend The Last Starfighter. I also recommend this if you're a fan of coming-of-age teen rom-coms, because there's a cute little romantic subplot as well. It's available to rent for a couple dollars on Amazon Prime, and there's also an Arrow Blu-ray. Next is Married to the Mob from 1988, directed by Jonathan Demme. Yep, Jonathan Demme made some comedies, some romantic comedies before Silence of the Lambs. Okay, this is a comedy about a woman named Angela DeMarco, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and of course I gotta watch this movie. My surname is in it. And that's part of why my grandma used to love this movie. So after Michelle Pfeiffer's gangster husband, played by Alec Baldwin, who's in it for a short bit, is murdered by his fellow mob member Tony, the Tiger, played by Dean Stockwell, she moves to the city with her son and starts a new life for herself. Dean Stockwell's character basically stalks Michelle Pfeiffer and wants to make her his mob mistress. Mercedes Rule, who won Best Supporting Actress with Fisher King, plays his Dean Stockwell's character's jealous wife, and it's hilarious. There's a scene early in the film where Dean Stockwell tries to kiss Michelle Pfeiffer at the funeral, and she, of course, rejects him. The FBI takes a picture of this, so they think that she might have killed her husband. An FBI agent named Mike Downey, played by Matthew Modine, tracks her down, and then they start to fall in love. It's It's very cute and funny, but I also love how independent Michelle Pfeiffer's character is and doesn't take BS from anyone. I believe it's available on Hulu and Amazon Prime, and there's also a Kino Lorber Blu-ray. That's how I watched it. And finally, Only the Lonely from 1991, directed by Chris Columbus. In this comedy, John Candy plays a Chicago cop named Danny Muldoon, who has a domineeringly high-handed mother, Rose, played by the Irish actress Maureen O'Hara. He meets and falls in love with a funeral home worker named Teresa, played by Ali Sheedy, and Maureen O'Hara tries to sabotage their relationship. There are funny scenes where John Candy's character imagines these horrible death scenarios with his mother. He confides in his friends Patrick and Sal, played by Kevin Dunn and James Belushi, for help, but this does not ease his anxiety. There are high stakes for John Candy and Ali Sheedy's relationship as a result. It's a really sweet hidden gem of a movie. There are even some serious moments where John Candy shows dramatic acting skills. What a loss. John Candy was wonderful. Only the Lonely is available on DVD and on Hulu and Amazon if you have Stars. And that will do it for my uplifting recommendations. Stuff that could become your new familiar favorites if you seek them out. I'm certainly glad I did. Well, see you next time. Goodbye for now. Wait, and before I close, if you like this video, then press the like button and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at Eclectic Movie Updates. And for my poetry, you can follow me at Positive Poems. And if you want to check out my letterbox, you can follow me at Eclectic Movies. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you all. Goodbye for now.